Well, this past week, Rachel and I, on Wednesday, so just for context, this was still November, we let our boys have their fake, may I add, Christmas tree in their bedroom. So I got up in the loft, and that's a pretty perilous situation, to be honest. And I came down with a tree, and the boys, they wanted to decorate their tree, and they've got their lights on it. And we started reading the Christmas stories, you know, all the classics like Dino Claus and The Mouse Before Christmas Day. These are fantastic books. If you haven't read them, I can only recommend them. And then I had a great night's sleep. Rachel has said about me that I have a gift of sleeping through the night with no challenge of noise or anything kind of waking me up. The idea of being woken up is pretty actually rare for me, even with 3 boys under 5. So you can imagine my surprise the next morning when I find out that as we're sitting around the breakfast table with my mother-in-law at 7 a.m., my middle child, Ethan, he just said, "Dad, I'm tired." 7 a.m., son, you've been up for an hour, you can't be that tired. I don't know what else is going on in your life, but you can't be that tired. To which my mother-in-law said, "Well, Daddy, we have all been up since 3:30 a.m. We've been a little bit excited." So I said to my boys, I was like, "Boys, you do realize it's not Christmas Day today?" They said, "No, Dad, but it's Christmas time and it's exciting." And it actually really struck me because there's something about the excitement of this season. And what really struck me was how present my boys were to the season, how present they were to this kind of exciting moment. And I want to encourage us as a church to be people and to be a community that are present in this season, to be excited about this season, and particularly to be present to his presence this season. But it's a fight, isn't it, to be present, if we're really honest? It's hard to be present. Like I said, in 3 weeks' time, we're going to be at Christmas Day. But if you're anything like me in the past, it's quite easy to miss everything that leads up to it. It's quite easy to just get there, to be on the 26th of December and think, "I've just totally missed it. Where did that go?" And I think there are 2 particular areas where I personally believe the enemy strategizes so that we would miss it. And that's in the areas of hurriedness and distraction. Think about being hurried. Dallas Willard said this. He said, when he was asked the question, what's the key to emotional health? He responded with this: "You must ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life." Here's the thing, we can't love in a hurry. We can't listen in a hurry. I found that as much as I try to, it's really hard to pay attention to a child in a hurry. And this Christmas, my gut is that we're all going to be busy. We've all got things kind of filling our calendar. We've got lots of people to see and presents to buy and things to do. But we don't have to be hurried. We don't have to be hurried. Being hurried is a choice. Busyness is about the calendar, but being hurried is about the pace in which we choose to operate. I want to encourage us to be people this Christmas time that are prepared to say, it was okay, it was a busy time, but it wasn't a hurried time. That actually, I want to live at a pace. I want to live at a place and in a pace where I'm able to receive the love of God and I'm able to give that to other people around me. Jesus, our example, he wasn't hurried, but yet he accomplished more in 3 years than anyone else on the face of the planet ever has. So this Christmas, how can we ruthlessly eliminate hurry from our lives? And I believe one of those biggest challenges with hurry is this area of distraction. Distraction is simply anything that keeps us from giving our best attention to the things that matter more, especially our smartphones. These are, I think, the most distracting things we have in our lives. I was at a rugby game on Friday evening after our fantastic collaboration with St. Matt's and St. Dionysus, and we had a great time. Carols on the green with those churches on Parsons Green. And then we went over and watched Harlequins playing a rugby game. What was fascinating, we got there about 15 minutes before the kickoff, was there was like a bit of a show, a bit of a spectacle had been created. And it was one of those moments where you kind of like, you want to kind of behold it. You want to stand in awe. And it's like, this is incredible. But what I realized quite quickly was that actually most people around me, including myself, we got out our phones to kind of capture this moment, and then started like sending messages and, oh, you should be here. Oh, this is amazing. And I was sending a couple of messages to friends who I know are rugby fans. And then I had this moment, I realized, I looked around myself, and in fact, everyone seems to be on their phones, sending the video or the picture that they've just taken to someone else. And then I realized in the midst of that, I was missing a fireworks display happening. I felt really challenged by that, because I think it's a picture of life for us. We can be so keen to send something on to someone, or so keen to kind of move on to the next thing, or oh, look where I am. And we spoke a little bit last week about FOMO, didn't we? How about we're people of JOMO, the joy of missing out? That we're prepared to be people that we don't need to be in every single situation, at every single thing, but actually we can be people that say, actually, what is it that I'm learning in this time that's just for me? And when we were watching this game, it struck me that actually I've probably got a little bit of a problem with this, if I'm really honest. These things are remarkable. They have 30,000 times the processing power of what it took to get Apollo to the moon. Did you know that? They're used for connection, they're used for games, they're used for navigating, they're used for catalogs, they're used for Pinterest, they're used for so many things, before we even talk about social media. If you have children, the game is sometimes watching on the navigation how far away your loved one is and when they're arriving. They're amazing. But they can also, I think, strangely hurry us. I think they can speed up our lives. Do you know the typical cell phone user touches their phone 2,617 times every day? The top 10% touch their phones more than 5,400 times a day. So, this Christmas, how can we give our attention to what really matters? To not get distracted, to not be hurried into making decisions, into sending things on, to missing what is right in front of us, missing this display, like I missed of these fireworks. Missing what is right in front of us that God might want to show us. Not going immediately at the beginning of our day to Facebook, to Twitter, to Snapchat, to TikTok, to YouTube, even the news. But to go to the Word, to choose to get into the Word and to immerse ourselves in the Christmas story this Christmas. It's really interesting. Tony Reinke, who wrote the book 12 Ways Your Phone is Changing You, says, maybe we need to admit that we're just a little addicted to distraction. And sometimes we distract ourselves because of actually what seasons represent. Christmas is an interesting time, isn't it? Because Christmas brings up all sorts of things for people. We sing it's the most wonderful time of the year, but actually as a father of three and hosting lots of people, organising a lot of things. I might be speaking for others here as well, but I'd also argue it's probably the most stressful time of the year as well. For others, it's a very painful time of the year. Maybe this Christmas is actually going to be a really tough time for you, as it's the first Christmas you have without a loved one. Or you're dealing with something right now and it's particularly sore, it's particularly sad. It's a tough season. I think one of the strategies of the enemy is to distract us. And I think hurriedness and distraction are some of those strategies where he wants us to get us so distracted and so hurried that we miss the purpose, that we miss what God might have for us in this season. And in the same way it was for my boys to be present to the season, it's for us to be present to his presence this Christmas season. The reality is, if we miss it, we're in really good company. Do you know, most people missed it. They missed what happened. In fact, we're told that only 10 or 15 people and a number of animals actually caught what was happening back then. But this Advent, let's choose to put our attention and pay attention for Emmanuel, God with us, God who's coming again, and God who is showing himself in the times of waiting we're in right now. Today we're going to do something slightly different. We're not going to look at just one chunk of scripture. We're going to look around a couple of chapters 1 and 2 of Luke. And we're going to look at Mary, the life of Mary, and particularly the way that she was present, because I think she was probably the most present person to Jesus' coming. And I'm going to give us a few ideas this morning that I think might be practical and helpful as we navigate how we can be present to his presence this season. So a little kind of background to the story so far. Mary's had this encounter with the angel Gabriel. She's been told, by the way, you've got God flesh inside you. You're going to give birth to the Son of God. You're going to give birth to the Savior of the world. Your life is never going to look the same, Mary. And we think, wow, this is incredible. This is a 14 or 15-year-old woman, girl, and she's betrothed. She's not married. She's engaged to Joseph. And it says this, Luke 1, verse 38. And Mary says, "Behold, I am the servant of the Lord. Let it be to me according to your word." And the angel departed from her. That word, behold, means to stand in awe, to be amazed. Can you imagine that conversation between Mary and Joseph? Off the back of this conversation, you're going to have a baby, but this baby's going to change the world. He's the Savior of the world. He's the King of Kings. Hi, Joseph. We need to chat. You know how we are engaged. Well, listen, I've had a really interesting moment today. I kind of received a call. An angel came, and the angel Gabriel, I believe it's Gabriel, came and spoke to me and told me that I'm actually going to have a baby. Joseph, anyway, before we go any further, just tell me a bit about your day. How was it? How are your friends? How was it? What did you do? Anything fun? Anything you want to tell me? Have you got any interesting information? Mary, come on. What are you talking about? Get to the point. Well, anyway, this baby is already conceived. Like, it's actually already happened. So yeah, I don't know how we're going to deal with this, but this is the situation right now. This is where we're in. This is what's happening. Can you imagine that for Mary and Joseph? Mary, 14, 15 years old, engaged. She's thinking, if I can at least get Joseph on side, then I might be able to get maybe some of the rest of the village on side. Maybe people might understand a little bit more. But Mary, this was for Mary, this was going to do everything against her reputation. This was going to be her reputation. This was actually, in that day and age, this was potentially going to cause her death. This is such a significant moment. And so I think in this war against distraction and hurriedness in this season of Christmas, to be present to his presence, the first thing I want to encourage us to do is, like Mary, is to surrender our agenda. Surrender our agenda. Mary's surrender wasn't a passive resignation, but it was an active yielding in a season filled with our plans and our agendas. We're invited to echo Mary's words. How often do we surrender our plans for God's purpose? Trusting that his design is greater than our own. I know that in my life there have been many problems, not just like trying to solve how to do a Rubik's Cube, still haven't worked that out, but bigger problems as well. And I'm sure that we all have problems and challenges that we're navigating right now. Maybe there's a problem right now in your life that, if you're really honest, it's like, I don't know how to navigate life. This is robbing me of my joy, of my hope, of that sense of peace and being able to love. Just think about when Mary got that word. That temptation for Mary might have been to think, well, how are we going to do this, Joseph? What are we going to do? How are we going to make excuses? Like, how are we going to make this all kind of make sense for other people so that we don't have to worry about our reputation and all of these things? But Mary says, Lord, I'm the Lord's servant. May your words be true and be fulfilled. I wonder if that for each of us, the Lord is saying to us, would you just surrender that thing that you're trying to make sense of to me this season? Perhaps this year it's to be honest with your colleagues about what you actually do on a Sunday. Perhaps it's about risking your own reputation this year by inviting your friends to come and hear the good news this Christmas time. Some today, you need to choose to be unashamed to follow Jesus and surrender your plans for how you want that to look and work out in your life. The second application I think we can learn is actually just a few verses later, Luke 1, verses 46. This is Mary's song. This was like the first Christmas carol, so to speak. It says this: "My soul glorifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God my Saviour, for he has been mindful of the humble state of his servant. From now on, all generations will call me blessed, for the Mighty One has done great things for me. Holy is his name. His mercy extends to those who fear him, from generation to generation. He has performed mighty deeds with his arm. He has scattered those who are proud in their inmost thoughts. He has brought down rulers from their thrones. He has lifted up the humble. He has filled the hungry with good things, but has sent the rich away empty. He has helped the servant Israel, remembering to be merciful to Abraham and his descendants forever, even as he said to our fathers." I think the second thing that we can choose to do and to choose to engage with is to choose to engage with singing in this season. This is the season to sing. Some of these carols, songs that we get to sing together, they're just remarkable words rooted deeply in Scripture. And I honestly believe that this is a time for us as a church to be really excited and encouraged to invite our friends. Do you know, so many of my friends love this time of year because there's something about the songs we sing. There's something about the songs we sing. This is one of the greatest songs ever written. It's the Magnificat. This is still sung today. Forget Taylor Swift. Forget Adele. This is a 14 or 15-year-old girl filled with the presence of Jesus singing this song of hope, love, joy, and peace that is still sung today. And this whole song is laid and laced with incredible prophecies and promises and language and passages from the Old Testament. And I want to encourage us during this holiday symphony to sing, to choose to sing our own notes of praise, to choose to sing, to drown out the chaos that is also in this time, in this world. And it's worth saying that worship and singing isn't just confined to in these four walls. Do you know, it is good to sing. I like to sing in the shower. I like to sing in the kitchen. I walked into our house yesterday as Rachel was finishing putting up the decorations on the tree, and she was singing "O Night Divine." "O Holy Night." Something happens in our souls when we hear the singing. And even just this week, I was listening because I've been getting into the Christmas spirit, as I'm sure we all have. And as you were walking in, if you were here early, we were playing a Maverick City Christmas album. I love it. Every morning it goes on. And I was listening to it in the gym on Wednesday this week. And as I was listening to it, I went away from one machine to go and get some water. And the thing about that for me is that where I was situated at the machine and where the water was meant that my AirPods would go out of reach. And so I was too far away to hear the music, which then I suddenly realized when I was walking back that my music was blaring out on my phone because it had lost the connection. But you know what? I had the most amazing conversation with someone as a result of that. Most amazing conversation. There is power in our worship songs. God inhabits the praises of his people. Someone came in just the other day, 2 weeks ago. Their husband had just passed away, and they walked into this space, and they felt peace. They hadn't been to church for 20 years, taking their memorial in the new year. Something happens when we hear these songs. Something happens when we hear these words. When we praise, we experience his presence. And neuroscience tells us as well, by the way, that when we sing, our bodies, they release chemicals and release endorphins, and our body meets us in that moment where oxytocin lessens depression. It decreases anxiety. And when we're singing, when we're worshiping God, it's interesting, isn't it? We suddenly come out of our thoughts about ourselves and we begin to sing to the King of Kings. We begin to give him all the praise and all the glory. And we don't think about our own problems because we make praise our problem. We make it God's problem. It no longer becomes our problem. Sing this Christmas time. Sing in here. Sing on your own. Enjoy the time of singing. And then finally, stop. Luke chapter 2, verse 19 says, at the end of all of this, says this, Mary treasured up all these things and pondered them in her heart. To the wise men, the shepherds, the star, the angel Gabriel, the fact that Joseph didn't leave her, she treasured up all these things and pondered them in her heart. Can I encourage us to embrace moments this season to wonder, to ponder amidst the noise, in the midst of the chaos? Mary, she treasured and she reflected. I think wondering, pondering is a lost art in a world filled with noise, because we're distracted, because we're hurried. How often do you stop? How often do you carve out space to make space to slow down and not rush ahead? She was treasuring God's faithfulness. The Christmas story is full of things to contemplate and to ponder. And actually for me, that's why today it's a bit all over the place, because I've wanted to engage in this story in a way where it feels different this year for me. I want to encourage you to do the same, to immerse yourself. That what if you were to just read Luke 1 and 2 every day this Christmas time? And just let the Lord speak to you in those 2 chapters. Something I found myself thinking about this week, as we have been talking a lot as a family, and we put the star on the tree, and actually the boys have now got stars on their walls in their bedroom. Been thinking about the stars and thinking about, well, stars were flung into the sky, weren't they, by the creator of the universe? And yet, Mary gave birth to the creator of the universe. Think about it this way. The hands that made all of creation were the same hand wrapped around Mary's finger. Jesus started as an embryo. The one who began the beginning, who was there before the beginning, became an embryo. The size of a pea, and then the size of a blueberry, and then the size of an avocado. And it was in the womb of Mary, and then was born and made himself vulnerable. And those same hands wrapped around Mary and Joseph's fingers were the hands that would grow and expand and stretch out on a cross for us, for our redemption, out of his love, for our freedom, so that we might experience and have a relationship with him this Christmas time. So in this season, can I encourage us to be people that wonder, that ponder, that think about these things? Think about his goodness. Become present to his presence this season. Slow down. Sing. Be still. I recently found an app for pondering. Really good, actually. If you've got an iPhone like mine, it's this button on this side and this button here, and you hold them together. And then it says, slide to power off. That is a gift. Can I encourage us this Christmas time to choose to create space, to carve out time, to ruthlessly eliminate hurry from our lives, to get rid of distractions, to choose to make space to become present to his presence for what he might have for us. when I was thinking about this talk this morning, it reminded me of a couple of years ago, actually. It was just off the back of COVID. And I realized around this time of year, I had a very honest conversation with Rachel and said, actually, I'm realizing that I'm just not very present. She said, yeah, no, I agree, darling, you're not very present. And that's okay, James, because you're busy and you're a curate and you've got lots going on. You've got 5 services on a Sunday and you're doing all of these things and there's lots going on. It's a busy time. I felt so convicted. I just wasn't present. I wasn't present at the time for my boys. I wasn't present for my family. I wasn't present for what mattered most, if I'm honest. And so I made a conscious decision when, on the 26th of December hit, I turned off all social media. I basically realized I'd become addicted to social media. I was fascinated with what others were doing. I had FOMO. And I made a conscious decision to turn off all the noise. Do you know what was fascinating? When it came through to the new year, and in theory holiday time was over, I definitely spent way more time with my family and was far more present. I thought, you know, I'm going to carry on. A couple more weeks in and thought I'm going to carry on. I was Lent in a week's time. I'm just going to carry on. Didn't go back onto my social media until the summer of that year. Really honest with you, I need to do the same again. Become so busy, so distracted, that I haven't been able to always be present to the things that matter most. I don't know about you. I don't know what it is for you. It might not be your phone. It might be something completely different. But I know that this, for me, has a huge impact on my spiritual life. And I want to encourage you this Christmas to choose to surrender the things that get in the way of knowing closeness and proximity to Jesus' presence. I think each of us should spend a little more time asking the question as we prepare for the new year, as we are in this time of waiting and Advent together, to ask the question, what is it that's keeping me from giving my best attention to the things that matter most?